It is actually my pleasure to introduce Carl LaVO as this evening's speaker. I say that as a reader and an admirer. He writes about historical places in Bucks County. Not only that, but he generally takes, he actually physically goes to these places, and he takes with him family members, his grandkids. Dashel is one, and Margot, and Genevieve is your daughter. Genevieve. So I just love that personal touch that Carl is able to give some of these historic sites. And as a matter of fact, we try to do pretty much the same thing at our events. We try to tie people into events that we've had. And I think it's just, you know, as you are aware, if you read the promos, part of Carl's presentation tonight will be on Chief Tamanend and Crazy Tom. Crazy Tom situated himself around Castle Valley, and I'm sure Carl will get into how that got its name and all that, but I see in the audience Mark Fisher, who is the current owner of Castle Valley Vineyard Mill, and his dad, my tennis playing buddy Bob Fisher. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of interesting things to say about that. So with that, Carl?
Okay, tonight I'd like you to meet Crazy Tom. He and Indian Chief Tamanend left their mark on your neighborhood a long, long time ago. Okay. One of the interesting facts about Bucks County is that it was not only home to William Penn, but also Indian Chief Tamanend, the patron saint of America. The chief was a friend of Pennsylvania's founder and worked tirelessly for peace with European immigrants. In his long life, he spent idle moments on his favorite hilltop near here where he died. A few decades later, a settler tried to build a castle on the hill next door to honor the chief. More on Crazy Tom later, but first a bit about Chief Tamanend. Tamanend was top chief of the Lenape tribal divisions, the Wolf, Turkey, and Turtle clans. Upon William Penn's arrival in 1681, the chief established a warm mutual friendship with the Englishmen. Both learned the other's language. Together, they idealized how Europeans and Indians could live in harmony. In that sense of mutual trust, the chief, who was 53, sold much of Bucks County to Penn in 1683. Tamanend also publicly rebuked the Iroquois Indians in New York, who demanded his tribe drive out settlers from Pennsylvania. It was a courageous stand. Lenape Nation once spanned the Hudson and Delaware River watersheds in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. There were periodic dust-ups between European immigrants and the Indians, but Tamanend, whose name translates as affable, worked to tamp down hostility long after Penn returned to England in 1683. In 1694, he addressed Philadelphia's governing council and had this to say: "We and Christians of this river have always had a free roadway to one another, and though sometimes a tree has fallen across the road, yet we have still removed it again and kept the path clean, and we designed to continue the old friendship that has been between us and you. This friendship pact made him a saint in colonial eyes." Chief Tamanend loved trails along the Chamonix Creek, and especially Red Hill, now known as Prospect Hill in Doylestown Township. From the crest, he enjoyed magnificent vistas to the east, north, and west. He died there while on his way to Philadelphia to attend a treaty negotiation. Younger Indians had tired of carrying him when he became ill, so they built a small hut on the hill and left him there. The chief thought he had been abandoned, a useless old man in his 90s. In despair, he set fire to his bed of leaves, threw himself on it, and expired. Settler Walter Shewell discovered the body and buried it in the presence of other Indians. A large slab of slate from the Chamonix Creek was used as a marker. A century later, another property owner dug up the stone and used it in the wall of a new barn. The grave left unmarked eventually was lost. After the chief's death, towns from New England to Georgia celebrated St. Tammany Day every May 1st to honor him. On May 1st, 1778, George Washington and the Continental Army encamped at Valley Forge held, quote, a day in mirth and jollity in honor of King Tammany. Tammany society sprang up in major cities. In 1820, the U.S. Navy launched the battleship Delaware with a 9-foot wooden sculpture of Tamanend on its prow. When the ship was decommissioned, the sculpture was mounted on a pedestal outside Bancroft Hall, the largest dormitory in the world, at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Middies, not crazy about a pacifist Indian as an idol, renamed it Tecumseh, the fierce Shawnee warrior. Today, the chief's name endures in Tamanend Park in Upper Southampton, Tamanend Middle School in Doylestown, and Mount Tammany, which overlooks the Delaware Water Gap. He's also memorialized by the Boy Scouts Order of the Arrow Honor Society. With Tamanend's passing, things didn't go so well for his tribe. Slowly, they were dispossessed of their lands. Government policy gradually forced them to move ever more westward, eventually to Oklahoma. Enter Crazy Tom. Tom Meredith Jr. was the son of a prosperous Englishman who immigrated in 1726 to the south side of Neshaminy Creek in what is now Doylestown Township. Growing up, young Tom was educated in Philadelphia. He loved to read about noble Chief Tamanend and English castles, King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table of his father's homeland. He came to a strange conclusion, as he later wrote, "May not King Arthur be this great King Tamanend, held in such high esteem by not only his own people, but mine, dwelling here until time for his return to England's shore?" King Arthur and his Round Table particularly enchanted young Tom Meredith. When his father passed, Tommy Jr. decided to build a castle on the family's hilltop where the Neshaminy curls around its base. It would be a memory of Chief Tamanend and King Arthur. The hill was just to the east of where the chief lived and died. I'm hoping this is true. People began to wonder about Crazy Tom as he started his quest. Locals believed he suffered from too much learning. What the people didn't know was that Tom had a vision. It was Merlin the magician of King Arthur's court. Merlin spoke to Tom in a dream. The magician began, "You have seen an old native woman of the country pounding corn upon the rocks while she was drying the fish caught by men of the tribe. She is under an enchantment which causes her to appear old and hideous, while really she is a beautiful damsel. If you are willing to undergo the toil to set her free, heed well, and I will instruct you what to do. You alone must collect stone and timber and bring them to the top of your hill. You must then build from them a perfectly round castle, which must be absolutely straight within and without. If not, you will have to tear down the castle and start over." So Tom went to work. Dressed in a leather apron, he labored month after month, hauling rocks to the top of the hill. He also chopped down tall hemlocks for planking. Slowly, the rampart of the castle took shape. Tom was hoping to build a castle like this one in England. The wall finally reached as high as Tom could reach. Time to go fetch the Indian woman. Tom found her toiling along the Neshaminy and started talking to her. She didn't understand a word he was saying. Worse, she didn't turn into a beautiful nymph. Crazy Tom was crushed. Obviously, his castle wall wasn't straight enough. So he retreated to the hilltop and completely tore down the rampart in order to rebuild it. In the exertion, poor Tom didn't last much longer and died. All that remained were immense piles of boulders and hemlock planks. What to do with them? Local folks had an idea. They used all those stones and lumber and turned them into a covered bridge. It would carry Almshouse Road over the Neshaminy Creek. And so they did, and it would become the longest in the county at nearly 500 feet. The reason why Crazy Tom tried to build a castle became clear when an old desk went up for sale at an auction. Inside was a secret compartment with a manuscript apparently written by Tom Meredith, Jr. He explained his castle was to encourage a return to the age of chivalry of King Arthur and Chief Tamanend. As he put it, the few and far between people of my race are all so occupied in their daily toils that they have neither time nor inclination to think about the heroes of our motherland. To them, the brave King Arthur and his knights with their table round are myths. Their religion and toil have banished the days of chivalry from their minds. I have carried stone and hewn timber and brought them to the top of this hill, he continued. I have built my castle only to tear it down, for as yet the Indian woman does not understand me. I will try again if my strength will hold out, but I feel myself growing weaker. Unfortunately, the covered bridge made from Crazy Tom's stones and lumber eventually was torn down. In its place came a concrete and steel span. That span was replaced by yet another up-to-date bridge as seen in this photo taken recently. What Crazy Tom tried to accomplish lives on in the name of the valley, where he gathered stones and chopped down trees, Castle Valley. The community eventually built a pocket park on the creek with foot trails and posters to explain the story of Tom Meredith, Jr. Poor Chief Tamanend wasn't so lucky. Doylestown archaeologist Henry Chapman Mercer became very interested in the chief while doing field work in 1911. Mercer had accumulated a fortune and built the Mercer Museum, Fonthill Castle, and the Moravian Pottery and Tile Works in Doylestown. It was his intention to build a memorial to Tamanend on Prospect Hill on land purchased by the Bucks County Historical Society. As Mercer put it, it is to be different from any monolith ever erected to a human being in America. He'd construct a mammoth concrete turtle representing the chief's clan. A 5-foot base, 5-foot high base, would be the size of a football field. On it would stand the turtle, 15 feet high and 25 feet long and just as wide, and of a reddish-brown color. For unknown reasons, Mercer lost interest, and the monument to the patron saint of America never was built. Actually, I can add to that. When he was planning to build that monument, a dispute arose as to where Chief Tamanend was actually buried. And because of that dispute, I guess he gave up. So concludes my story of Chief Tamanend and Crazy Tom. I'm hoping that Fletcher and you good folks at the Doylestown Historical Society get to work building that turtle monument. We want to see it. Well, thanks for having me, and I welcome any questions you might have about what I do.